I cannot begin to tell you how heartening it's been to hear from so many friends all over the world who have been in touch, who have shared openly, vulnerably with me their possibly deepest, darkest self-inquiry, the pain, and the general discomfort of feeling like they have lost their grounding because everything they thought they knew has been shattered over the events, the suffering that we have seen, the escalation of the suffering, of this chronic suffering of our Palestinian brothers and sisters over the last few weeks. This sharing has got us talking a lot about the concept of wokeness, and I feel like I needed to dive really deep into that to really understand what wokeness is and who defines wokeness, who are woke people, who are aware people. I think in its sterile understanding or definition, I would say wokeness is probably becoming aware of injustice, whether social, political, racial, just becoming aware of this. What has happened is that I feel that it has been whitewashed, it has been diluted, and there is a reason for that, and we see it across all levels and sectors, and that is because it's the human urge to avoid pain and discomfort. So bear with me for a moment as I just unpack what I'm so excited to begin to explore. So I feel, and I've spoken about this before, we have demonized stress, for example, because we always assume that stress is bad. And yes, I agree, stress is bad. There's chronic stress that kills us very, very slowly. And then there's the stress that is referred to as the process of hormesis, where we create just enough pain and discomfort and stress in order for change to happen. And I always say that if we are in the business of growth, of change, of evolution, of transformation, there has to be some level of stress. And we see it evidently in plants that have been stressed, which is the process of hormesis I was referring to, are much more nutrient dense than plants that grow in greenhouses, that have everything provided for them, that don't experience stress. And I think by now you know how much I look for answers in nature. And the minute I see, if I have some thought or idea and I see it manifested in nature, I know that I'm on the right track. So because we human beings, this is a general human trait, we avoid any feeling of pain or discomfort, we tend to just go down the route of comfort, of familiarity, holding on to that security blanket. So we always just get to that threshold, but we never push beyond that threshold, and which is what is happening now, the whitewashing of wokeness. So we will approach certain topics that cause just a little bit of discomfort, but this discomfort has a threshold that we never ever want to threaten or push through. And then there's the other track that holds on to deeply held beliefs, which I also find our security blankets as well. But this group of humans will go down this rabbit hole, this abyss of just digging deeper and deeper with really heavy blinders on, and just continue to affirm and find evidence and proof to support what seems to be an unfortunate level of ignorance. And I'm not really interested in that group of people. I think we have so much hope in the other group of people that needs just a little bit of courage and just a little bit of commitment to personal growth and evolution. Because ultimately, if we are in the business of personal growth, once we start to become aware of who we are as people, and we begin this journey of exploration, of self-inquiry, ultimately what we find out is that life is interconnected. We're all interconnected. My own prosperity and ability to thrive is very much dependent on your own ability to prosper and thrive, and everyone's ability to prosper and thrive. And this is, I think, the heart of the matter. Now, there's the other level, the other group of people that has that courage and that willingness and that level of commitment and perseverance to lean into this discomfort and this pain that is beyond that threshold. It's definitely not an easy path. It's definitely not a short path. It's a long road, and this road will get us to question everything, question beliefs, question things we held onto as truths, question conditioning, and that can really feel very unstable for us and quite scary. And I think, at least from the people I've heard from, this is where they're at the moment, because this is really a point when you start to look around you and question everything, question your environment, question your family, question everything you have learned. And it's definitely, as I said, not an easy path. So for me, this is wokeness, and I think we have diluted it. I think the wokeness we see now, on both sides of the aisle, by the way, on both ends of the spectrum, is exactly the same, you know. And it arises from our human insistence on avoiding pain at all costs. So maybe in the process of exploring this awareness and awakening and wokeness, we need to begin to explore what our relationship is with discomfort, what our relationship is with pain. Maybe go back and dig a little bit deeper, question that, explore that, and then begin to have the courage to speak up, because this is not easy. But what I will say is that there are so many people out there who are experiencing the same thing you're experiencing, and who are on this path. And I believe this is the path of innovation, which takes me to sharing this personal story, because I think this issue of innovation has been on my mind a lot, and I think it's very much linked to this idea of becoming aware and wokeness. And in this process of self-inquiry and questioning and feeling like I'm at a place where I am, first of all, unlearning and then relearning everything from a different lens. A very painful process, let me tell you. But I think if we look at the state of the Islamic nation, not that the Islamic nation is one homogeneous nation, but just for the sake of argument, I find that if we look at the Islamic civilization as a whole, I think we have been on a downhill trajectory. And the reason for that is that the powers that be, that have decided what Islam is, have forced us to shun innovation, have convinced us that innovation is the work of the devil. So we have avoided it. So we've become consumers and receivers instead of innovators, because innovation requires, as I said, discomfort and pain. It requires critical thinking, and it's very dangerous because it threatens the status quo. So these are just some of the thoughts that I'm having as we begin to have this conversation about wakeness, about waking up, wokeness, and how important it is for us to remember that you're not alone, to remind each other that we're not alone and that we have a community with us. And before I end, I just wanted to mention that we've been reading how Zionist founders and leaders, subsequent leaders, were convinced that if they prolong this plan of theirs to expel Palestinians from Palestine, that the new generation will forget. And I think what we have seen is that the new generation has not forgotten. And as I explained, I always look at nature and see answers in nature. And I was reading up on the process of fermentation, and I came to this really mind-blowing realization. When we talk about the process of fermentation is when a substance is broken down into simpler substances. It becomes more bioavailable, and it actually becomes more nutrient dense. So fermented foods are actually much more nutrient dense than their original state. What I see is that this generation of youth are exactly have been doing the process of fermentation for us. We always look at trauma and think that inherited trauma becomes magnified and amplified. And I feel like maybe we need to question that as well, because what we are seeing right now is that this trauma has been this generational trauma of suffering, of apartheid, of colonization, has actually been fermented, broken down into its simplest substance element, and that is injustice. And this is what these Palestinian youths have been doing. Muna al-Kurd and tens of thousands of Palestinians like her have just been armed with a camera, and they have just been filming, documenting the injustice, broken it down to a simple injustice of a strange man walking into their homes, taking over their homes, and working to evict them from their home and from their land. That's all they've done. So they are the fermentation. They have simplified it instead of magnified it. But in that simplification, what they have done is they have multiplied the potency of their cause and their call for justice and liberation.